It's 2 more than last time.
Yeah. I mean, this is not the most exciting meeting for people I can understand.
Really?
Is that a joke?
Now I understand it, but I couldn't understand before. Like, Spec is super exciting. I don't know why people don't like it.
Sure. Let's go with exciting.
I thought it's a serious meeting.
It should be exciting.
It should be.
Leave me alone.
I mean, it is exciting, right? But it's tough sometimes.
It's tough sometimes, yeah. And what's it called? Imposter syndrome hits really high easily. So yeah, for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's jump into it. Lucas, do you want to add your stuff that you kind of forgot you added last time? And
Yes, I'm just looking for the issue.
Yeah, okay. Right. Let's just start with those then.
Yeah.
Oh, super exciting stuff again.
So there were 2 minor things. Actually, there are 3 things from my side, but one is the since you're sharing screen, can you share my comment from the last from 2 weeks?
Good. Didn't I just have it open?
Yeah, you had it. Yeah. Okay, so like in the very beginning of the async API spec, we say we want to keep as much compatibility as possible with OpenAPI specification. And I think with 3.0, we no longer have this desire.
Well, it says as much as possible. So we still support OpenAPI schemas. And yeah, what else? Some security mechanisms are identical. I don't know. No, not anymore. Yeah, true. So yeah, not even shit. I don't know. Yeah, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to mention, and I think it's still good to have another sentence where we say that we like it's inspired on OpenAPI, then integrate the stuff that they're doing. But like, it's just risky to have like this sentence because people might complain like, yeah, you want to be compliant, but you're changing stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Let's get rid of this new era. This is a new era for async API. So
okay, I'll open PR and see if other.
Yeah, because when I did it, it made sense because like async API was nothing. So yeah. Now async API is a thing probably. So yeah.
Jonas, do you have something to add here, or you agree?
I agree.
Okay, then I'll open PR. It's a small one. The next one, so the new description in the spec says blah blah blah. I must describe the operations as application performs. For instance, blah 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 means that and the subscriber will receive the messages like you see the text. No, there's no need to read it. But yeah, like we all know that people use async API also to describe brokers or the communication in the whole system. And shouldn't we have it there in the spec? Like, is like, or in other words, like, is there anything blocking us from actually saying like that application? Or like to change the definition of the application that we say, or instead of application, use some different word? Because I couldn't identify what's the problem.
I think the main problem is we don't have a word like at all that encompasses everything an application can be. Like it's just this abstract idea of some entity that does something. It can be an application in a general sense of in like microservice perspective, but it can also be, let's say that you have a team that's responsible for a lot of stuff underneath, then maybe it's your team that responsible for all of these operations within some kind of grouping. So it's like, while you do define it from an application point of view, it's like, and serverless as well for that matter, there it's like, well, do you group a lot of separate serverless functions together? Or how do you group them? So it's almost like an endless pit to try and describe what an application is and can be.
Yeah, and it's the same with IoT. Like, is it like when you say app, is it like the single device or a group of devices that actually have exactly the same code?
Well, that's the same with microservices. It's a single instance of the microservice or all the instances of the microservice. Usually it's all the instances, right? All the type of the instance, let's say. And the sensors is the type of sensor. If you have 10 sensors running the same code, then it's the same thing, right? It's the same sensor. Like virtual, it's the same thing. The reason you have 10 is for scalability issues and purposes, right? Not because it does something different. But I can see the concern, of course. And what's the idea?
Problem is there's no idea, like, because we're stuck with this application word.
Okay.
So I couldn't come up with something better than just trying to hijack the application definition.
What if it's part of the documentation in terms of, let's say that if you define, let's say that we have some kind of documentation content that's for Kafka specifically. How do you use Kafka within async API, for example? There you specifically define what an application can be, because that's specifically for Kafka, for example, or generic brokers in that sense. If it's WebSocket, it may be something else. If it's serverless, then it's probably something else as well. And it's the same with HTTP, for example, because, well, then an application is both the server and the client, and they could define different behavior, even though that a client, for example, let's say that you have different users towards a single API. The server itself has a bunch of operations you can perform on it. But a client, one specific client, whatever that is, can only have a subset of those, for example. So it's like, I think it's pretty natively to each protocol, and it's hard to
that applies to everything.
Yeah,
actually. So I can have to any protocol, like the subset of operations. Right. That's why we are recommending on version 3 that every node should have its own async API document. Right. In the case of server and client, it will be 2 async API documents, not just one. So for instance, if I have a Kafka microservice, for instance, my microservice might be sending 10 different kind of messages in 10 different topics, but the other microservice subscribing to these messages might only subscribe to 2 or 3 of them, right? Not all of them. So yeah, it's always a subset.
I wonder if it makes sense to add it as a, like, further specify here what an application is. Like what an application even mean. Because we have this.
There, right?
Like, because now we say clearly it must be a producer or consumer. So like
or both, yeah.
In some cases, like broker is not any of these, but
no, it's both.
About is it like is it consumer? Like, do people consider broker as a consumer or producer, or just a middleware in between that just makes sure that someone consumes
It's a
or someone?
middleware, but yeah. But effectively, what the broker is doing is consuming the message to then route it, publish it, or produce it to another place. So yeah.
Technically, yeah, but then if people
that
understand it this
fits,
way.
yeah, if it fits the definition of producer or consumer, I'm not sure, but that's what it's doing. We can change producer and consumer with receiver and sender. Maybe.
I was about to say the same. I think that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Actually, that should be enough. And it matched the new spec and the operation, the action, right?
So problem solved. Let's go home.
Easy.
That was easy. But then we have producer, consumer, then we probably have to have another definition, because now we're linking to producer, consumer.
Yeah.
And producer, consumer probably definitions are pretty specific.
It's actually kind of the same problem I had when I had to add the migration stuff, because what does a channel mean for REST, for example? What does a channel mean for WebSocket? What does it mean for Socket.io?
Yeah.
It's like, it's different description of an abstract concept.
I think we should augment the bindings, the scope of the bindings. So I think bindings should not be just a list of the objects that you can plug into the spec. But I think bindings should be able to somehow, well, not override, but make some of the generic definitions more specific. So for instance, the HTTP binding will say, in HTTP, a channel is a path, right? Period. Right? In Kafka, it's a topic. That's it. And so then each binding will have the authority to kind of like make the spec a little bit more specific, right? It cannot, it's like overriding, but without completely changing the purpose, right? So it's not like, you know what I mean, right? So it's not like HTTP binding cannot say a channel is, you know, a message, right? No, you cannot say that, right? You can be more specific, but that's so. I think bindings should probably go in this direction, and I think we have a binding like this that's already doing that. I'm not sure if it's Google one or which one is it. I can't remember, but I think we have a binding like this that is actually putting more specific information, or maybe it's the one that this one for Salesforce. For MuleSoft,
but what is it doing?
I don't know. It's adding more information on the binding, so it's not just listing the 3 tables with the 3 objects. It's putting more paragraphs there, specifying some things. You know, so
okay.
So it's we already have a binding like this.
It's IBM, I think.
Oh, IBM or something. Yeah,
IBM, and we also have now pretty detailed JMS pull requests. JMS related with also some additional
JMS, yeah. So probably I think it was Gerald who did it.
No, JMS, it's a pull request that is pending. We actually have to have a look.
So I think Gerald wrote one of the bindings like this.
Or any point.
Any point on Q, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I was thinking like, what is it? MuleSoft, Salesforce, yeah, any point on Q, yeah. Yeah, so I think the any point on Q has this kind of paragraphs, kind of like becoming more specific.
I think that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. So we don't bloat the generic spec, right? The general spec, and it's just and these problems then disappear, right? So this kind of problems disappear, right? When you need to become more specific about, you know, about the context or a protocol, then we can be even more specific. Like for instance, in HTTP, we're always assuming that there is like a REST API or something like that. You're using the HTTP binding to define a REST API or an HTTP API if you want. But what about HTTP in the broker? What about communicating with the broker via HTTP? That's also pretty common. So then on the HTTP binding, we'll also be specifying, like in the case of, in the case of HTTP for a broker communication, the channel means this or that, whatever. And in the case of an API, REST API or HTTP API, it means the path, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I'm saying because, for instance, Kafka has these Kafka connectors, and Solaz as well has these Solaz connectors, or I don't know if it's called connectors, but yeah, they have HTTP connectors. You can send a message to Kafka via HTTP. It's pretty common actually, especially when you want to expose Kafka to external people, because HTTP allows you to do more authentication, authorization stuff, right? So yeah.
Okay, and now I get what you meant by endpoint in queue, that they add some more context when you mentioned protocols, because yeah, IBM endpoint and this new JMS, they don't only specify the server binding, but also they specify what means a specific server information in the context of the binding.
So yeah, we can have this kind of like these relations, these entities on the spec, like a channel, a server, a message, an operation, all these entities. Then we can have a list of all of this, right? But then the binding can just like, so in the case of my binding in my protocol, in this specific case context, this means this, and server actually means the broker. It's not a server, right? Or yeah, it's a server, but yeah, it's most commonly known as a broker, right? In the case of Kafka, for instance, broker can be misleading because a Kafka cluster is composed of multiple brokers. So we cannot say broker to refer to the Kafka cluster. We should say cluster, right? So a server represents a cluster, right? So that's this is the kind of flexibility that putting this information in bindings will allow us to have. So, yeah.
Okay, then I'll follow up with a PR. With this simple.
Are we releasing this in June?
But it's just wording. It's more clarification, like docs related clarification. So
okay.
It does not affect.
Yeah. In any case,
I
think this things, the bindings is not a breaking change. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even consider bindings. No. I just mean this definitions that we have.
This specific thing.
Yeah. Just to clarify, because like whenever it's just my opinion is that whenever we assume that people might understand, it means that we should probably add. It's better to add 1-2 more sentences than assuming. And the third topic. I was like, because I was thinking about the async API mentorship topics, etc. And one topic came into my mind. The old topic I had in my mind was the versioning of docs. Like, because on the spec level, the approach is that we release new version, there will be no 2.7, 2.8. So whatever was there is there, but we extend 3.0, right? That's our long-term LTE, let's say, or whatever is the abbreviation. But what people have is they have access to GitHub repo, to tags. They can easily see the previous spec documents. In case of docs, what we'll do, we'll just throw away what we have for prior 3.0 and add new stuff, right? So for example, document about hello world, it will be just it will be just 3.0 focused. Whatever is 2.0 there will go away. And like on one hand, it's okay because in the end, what we have in the last bucket, the reference docs, the previous specs will be there, but without all these guides, this the other documents like tutorials. So yeah, there are two different strategies they do in docs. One is they do mass in the docs, so they just say, okay, in case of version this, do this, and in case of version that, do that. But it's mass. And what else they do is they do some drop downs, switch to old version. But the easiest path they do, they did it in Kubernetes in the past. Not sure if they change it now, but they just cut. So they basically, let's say day before the release, whatever is on the website, it goes under subdomain with some kind of, I don't know, 2.x.asyncAPI.com or whatever. And then there's just simple switch. Like if you want to read docs prior 3.0, we host it under this domain and it's read only. So there are different different options that we have to address.
I think from a newcomer's perspective as well, let's say, because it's gonna be scarce how many tutorials and further documentation we will have for the release of v3, unless something like someone just comes in and vacuums everything up and say, I'm championing all of this stuff. It would be nice if everything is clear to the user, what's v2 and what's v3 and what's available. Because if we have the website as we have now, where it's like, well, getting started, then maybe the introduction is changed to v3. Maybe it's not. Maybe the coming from OpenAPI is changed to v3. Maybe it's not. It's like you don't know if everything is bundled together in one, and we just slowly change it. So I think it would make sense that we explicitly separate the two. Basically, I don't want to say from scratch, but most of it from scratch. And what we have at release is what we have, and then slowly iterate on that. At least that's what I would suggest.
So like a separate domain, you mean?
Yeah, I will do the same. I think it's easier actually. We can easily automate it, and that will be copied to another folder or something, or branch, and
there's probably no automation even needed. It's just like if it's read-only, then we just like whatever we have on Netlify, we just make sure that it's available under this specific subdomain, and that's it. Like, and it's read-only. Like whenever there's some typo or whatever, we don't care. It's like it's old version. Like
But what I mean is that whatever we have, so when we're going to make a release, I'm not saying for now, but in the future, that is not a priority. But it will be cool that whenever we do the release, whatever is on the docs gets bundled together as a static website to another subdomain, right? Probably another branch or another folder or something, but as a static website, that's HTML and CSS and JavaScript, right? Not React or anything. And then it's served statically from there, right? For the previous version, let's say, for the old version, right? And the new one, it completely replaces what was there on master, right? On the master branch. So So yeah, it's like automatically created, and we dump everything to a new subdomain, and that's it. Of course, we can do it manually. We will do it manually initially, of course, because yeah, building the automation. Well, let's see. Maybe someone comes up and say, "I want to do it," but yeah, I will not complicate our lives with this. But I will actually do like not just the docs, the whole website. You know, like you bundle the whole website. You put the whole website under this domain. You know, at this specific stage. Maybe if we want, we can change the navigation. So blog always points to the latest blogs. But the rest of the stuff, it's like, this is old stuff. Or we can use the Internet Archive API. And I also saw that in the past. And we archive it in the Internet Archive archives. And then we just serve it from Internet Archive. So I think so we don't have to worry. The whole website, I think, is the simplest thing. And if you're on that subdomain, it's clear that you are. We will probably have to put a disclaimer there, right? You are on an old version, blah blah blah. Right? So,
Yeah, even in the new one, probably some banner or whatever, your info. Like
yeah, and the new one, you might want to have something like a switch or something like, I want to switch to the old version, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Right, and that will navigate to the other subdomain, and that's it. But yeah, on the older, I'm saying because I'm thinking of not about the people who lands on our website and start navigating. It's more about the search results. So people might, I mean, what's normal is that the oldest content will have better SEO, right? So that's the most probable, let's say. So it might happen that people search on Google and they land on an old version documentation, right? So it must be clear there that you are in an old version. Click here to jump to the new one, blah blah blah. Right? React has it like that, by the way. React documentations are doing this.
I mean, we should, from the SEO perspective, we should actually disable crawling on the old version.
Why? No, it might be useful. I mean, think about it. If I keep using 2.6, and that's what is useful for me, because I didn't migrate to version 3. I want to find 2.6 documentation because that's important for me, right? We might want to disable it once we don't support it anymore. We don't want people to find it.
I mean, we're
Right.
not supporting it anymore. Anyway.
No, we are. I mean, our parser will support version 2.
Oh yeah.
So we are supporting it. Once the parser says, I don't understand version 2, like we do with version 1, right? I don't understand this, then we might want to also can hide it from search results, right? Or maybe not, but yeah, in this case might be more understandable, right? But if I'm assuming that many people will not migrate over the next, let's say, year, 2 years, 3 years, right? Many people will stay on 2 point something. So,
yeah, but they can always find the, like, so I'm basically afraid that like in some cases it might make sense to crawl few pages, but in general there will be a lot of similar content.
Yeah.
And robots don't like it.
Yeah, that's the bad part. Yeah.
So that's why like it's better just to cut the like block robots on the old version.
We can disable some routes. Like we can disable, for instance, on the subdomain 2.6.0 asyncAPI.com, we can block robots from indexing, I don't know, blog and other stuff, right? Like don't index that. But we leave the docs path and we leave it indexable, let's say, right? That might be the trick.
Yeah, but still some documents will be super similar, like tutorials. Just one tutorial will show 3.0 document, but then some steps about, I don't know, like generating code, whatever, there will be almost no change, if any. So there are identical. So then you're playing with these canonical URLs. Oh my God, like it's that's why it's better just to cut. Like first cut, and if people complain, try to improve.
That's another option. Yeah. We keep our lives simple because maybe nobody cares. So.
And we'll probably have to also do something with Algolia.
Another option is that we manually mark each of the documentation pages that we want to serve to be like indexable, and we skip those. Like we ignore everything except those, right? Like from here to the future, right? Like if I write one, for instance, if I'm writing a getting started guide or hello world example, I want this to be indexed, right? If I'm writing the code generation tutorial, probably not, because it's the same, right? So we can have a field on top of the document saying keep indexing true, whatever, something like that. If it finds this thing, it will not be, I mean, just ideas.
We anyway have this issue already, that in case of reference docs, 2.0 is indexed as the first one. So in the Search Console, we see that like people, whatever they look for spec, they actually find Async API 2.0, not the latest 2.6, for example. That also has to be, But yeah,
that's another thing. Maybe we want to just index previous major versions, not all the versions. So we have 2.asyncAPI.com, something like that, right? Not 2.6, 2.5, right? So we want to index the latest 2 point something, right? The latest 3 point something. Because in between those versions, majority will be the same. So,
I'll then update the issue that we have in the website, and mention it in the specification channel, so others are aware. Also, we'll tag Alejandra.
I can actually lead the next question in then, because one of the things that I've thought about was for at least these two documentations that I'm working on, migration guide and release notes, I would kind of like to merge them before we release them. Because I kind of want to do a cross-reference to each other. And in order to make them work well together, we kind of need to see them side by side and make small changes as needed. And it kind of requires either a branch or something where we can work on whatever changes to the website Spec 3.0 require. Then it would also give us the option of slowly iterating whatever we have on the website and slowly removing what's not relevant anymore for VE3. For example, docs related, for example, tutorials, whatever.
But in case of migration guide and release notes, because there's so much related, isn't it better just to have one pull request? Then you don't have a problem of merging because all is integrated with the previous.
Yes, we could do that, yeah. But I was thinking about if we wanted to have one subdomain for V3 or V2, whatever, and we wanted to start removing stuff that's unrelated to version 3. For example, we also have to change this. And there's probably way more stuff as well on the website that needs to change. I was wondering whether it made sense to have what's it called, like a specific branch that we can make all these changes to, and then make one final PR that then changes everything.
Okay, like a branch, like we do with
Yes.
anything else. Yeah.
Next major spec branch on the website. That's what you mean.
Basically, yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, makes some sense. So we can have everything ready and probably release it all at the same time, right? So, or almost at the same time. Otherwise, it's going to be a mess. Like things will be, like you said, something is going to be pointing to something that is not yet merged, so it's not existent. So,
I mean, I can have a local PR, like a local branch as well. Like it doesn't have to be on the website, like Origin, but I think it makes more sense if it is.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that, because if you lose your laptop, you're going to be fucked.
Well, yeah. If I lose my account, it would be bad. Yeah. Let's not do it.
Yeah, or your account. Yeah, because you push into your fork.
Yes, exactly. All right. Let me just. Anything else to add to your last item, Lucas?
No. Just regarding the idea with the branch, I don't think there's a need to create or actually you're gonna have to create an issue probably, or just ping in Slack, Akshat and Alejandra if they have anything against, because like it's me, Akshat, and Alejandra that are the active maintainers, which can have objections.
I'm just gonna do a issue and then tag on Slack.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Migration guide. Yay. So I started documenting all of the breaking changes we have, or at least figuring out how to show them between version 2 and version 3.
I like it. Yeah, that's cool.
So yeah, I ended up with just having this in the beginning, and then I started splitting out everything into smaller sections.
Yes.
Because nobody will understand this without some context.
Yeah.
But once they understand, for example, read this, then they can probably understand this. So this will probably be a reference in some cases. But yeah, I started just documenting every breaking change we have, describing between version 2 and version 3 what's the breaking change is and why, basically. And then showcasing with an example how the spec changes, both from the interactive side, but also from a documentation side. And I did this for, well, there's some missing breaking changes, but in general, that's the idea. And the idea is not to showcase all of the features, but it's just to showcase what's breaking, or how do you migrate from one version to another. And
okay, so you don't want to do.
I like that. Subscribe, send, publish, receive. Sorry.
Yes, because even this is confusing.
I hope it's the last time.
Yes.
So you don't want to, for example, involve request reply here.
Yeah.
That's what you meant. Okay.
No,
That's
breaking changes. Okay.
That's what the release notes are for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's where all of these are all the features that don't break your spec, basically, or basically everything. Everything that changed in version 3, here's the place for it. I'm having a bit of trouble figuring out how much to explain, because I can write a whole lot of stuff regarding request reply and, for example, the use cases, and then going into descriptions of, okay, so how do you solve use case 1, 2, 3, 4, and showcasing that with an example. But it's like, it's just release notes, so it's like I'm kind of missing a place where it's possible to deep dive into the subjects even more.
That's docs, right? That's
yeah. So I'm kind of trying to limiting myself while still providing value.
Makes sense.
The idea was that each change in version 3 will have further resources you can go to. It will link to migration guide that explicitly states differences between version 2 and 3, because this doesn't. This only explains like the new structure for v3. It doesn't explain explicitly what changed. That's what the migration guide are for. That
And I will even add to this that, you know, if we have another branch for docs or in the same branch, if we have a branch for docs, then we can add stuff like more stuff about request reply functionality, for instance. And then here in the release notes, you can link to the docs where we further explain these concepts, right?
Yes.
This information. So you don't have to expand here. This is just like an index, and then you go and learn from the docs, right?
Yes. That's the general idea. And I wanted to also it's probably not everyone that cares, but it's just the idea that everything is traceable. Like you can trace it back to each issue, you can trace it back to each pull request. You can see the discussions we had, the decisions we took, and why it's implemented. So it's like, I just thought this made sense. We probably need to figure out how to display this, because I'm not like, there's nothing designed about this. It's just information that's placed there because I don't know how to design it in any way or form.
Probably links to the videos as well, YouTube recordings. But that's tricky. That's tricky.
I was thinking about doing that, but based on how many meetings we had, I kind of didn't want to go into
No, it's tricky. Maybe from the meeting notes you can guess something and put a link, and that's it. But yeah.
Exactly. So maybe the issues has been linked, maybe the PRs have been linked in the meetings
as
so
well.
like, yeah. So I was hoping that would be enough, and then, like, for example, give a link to the entire playlist on YouTube with all the meetings. So you always have the possibility of going through.
Yeah, that's another option.
Yeah.
So Lucas is in trouble.
Lastly, one thing I actually really wanted to do, but I'm not sure whether it makes sense. What if I tagged everyone that was involved in some way or form in V3?
Yeah.
Because I wanted to make some kind, because it's such a big release. There's so many moving parts, so many that has contributed one way or another. So I wanted to make a section that explicitly tags everyone. And then I tag everyone on GitHub. So everyone has the option of slightly changing how they are tagged, for example. If they want their name changed in like not a GitHub name, but their actual name or whatever. So I was thinking about doing that. So, but that's kind of a new thing that's not common in any of the release notes we have. So I'm basically just asking the question whether it makes sense.
Yep, I like this idea. It's always cool to see your name there.
Yeah, exactly. What else? That's basically it. I did have one thing I wanted to bring up, and that's the new trade merge mechanic. It feels like we are stuck, but I haven't seen Matic respond any further than this. So I have a feeling that it's almost there, but there's still some things that are left out at the moment. I haven't tagged him yet, so I just wanted to mention it. Seems like there's some whatever. that means. I'll probably tag Magic and see what he needs. But otherwise, it seems like it's just a naming stuff that's missing. For the schema definition stuff, it seems like it's just Psycho that needs to get back. Yeah. Other than that, that's basically the remaining changes that needs to be done.
I still have some stuff to do, I think. I don't know if it's in this list. But
it's probably not.
No,
this is the only two.
It's not. So this change that we discussed about separating server variables and channel parameters from schema.
It doesn't ring a bell.
I know, because I have it in my to-do list, but I didn't have time this month, as you know.
But
So
that depends on Heiko, right?
So yeah.
Anyway.
Is it? Okay. That would be cool.
I mean, I don't think he's touching the definitions. You would have to check his PR, but
but he said that this will be done in a different PR, and I agree, because that's
yeah.
insane. So I don't know if he's willing to do it. That would be amazing for me.
No, I don't think he's gonna do it. I just mean that maybe it's worth to wait for him with his PR. I don't think he's gonna do it. You probably have to do it.
Okay.
No.
To wait for his PR to be finished.
Yeah, I'm just trying to avoid conflicts, but I don't remember like the schema PR if he's actually. I think he's ignoring parameters because that's what we agreed. So might be that you can open PR without.
I think there's going to be a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Conflicts. Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, the sooner you do it, the better.
In any case, so today, actually, I was looking at the definition of server variables again, because in my head, I don't know why I thought that we had this type field where you can define type string, type integer, and something like that, and we don't have that. Which makes total sense because it's a simple feature, and in my opinion, it will remain a simple feature, and especially given that nobody complained so far. So it means that it's enough as it is. So I'm now even thinking that we should do the same for parameters, right? No type, no anything, just simple stuff, right? Enums, default values, and that's
Example.
it.
That's it, yeah.
And examples, and description. That's it. We don't have to create yet another object, entity, or something. We can copy paste. Can be duplicated. It's okay to duplicate. And that's it. That's what I will do. I will keep it simple. And then the cool thing is that from there on, it's easy to grow. If someone asks, like, "Hey, I need to know about the type," right? I need to know if it's a number, if it's a string, or cool. Then we add type. Right, and so on and so on. If we see that it's getting too complex, then we might eventually point it to a schema.
Are you talking about parameters?
Yeah, mostly parameters. Yeah, because variables, it's clear that variables are fine as they are. Nobody complains. So
and you don't want type keyword for parameters?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, the thing is that I have to think about it yet, so I still have to sit down and think properly about it. But what I was saying is that we can make it the same as the server variables without type, right? And see if it's enough, because it might be enough.
No.
Why not?
I can already tell now, because I'm using parameters with only type keywords. Because because parameters are arbitrary in my cases. Like it's something that defined at runtime. It's not something I have information about.
Yeah, but what type you use? String always.
It's always string.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's the
okay,
thing.
so you only will allow strings, but
or not. We don't say anything about the type. We don't say anything. Like in server variables, we don't know the type. You guess it at runtime, right? Maybe it's a number, but it's anyway going to be passed as a string, because in URLs you can only have it as a string, right? Because the URL itself is a string. So
Okay. Gotcha.
So yeah, I mean, yeah. The
So
value of it,
even if it's a number, it's still it's still
serializable as a string.
it's still
That's
part
the
of
thing.
the string, so it's like almost injected in some way.
We can get crazy there and say like, no, we allow you to tell us the type, and it can be a number, Boolean, and all the stuff, right? But then we have to define how do you serialize this to a string, right? Like,
Yeah,
then
that
we
makes
have to be
sense.
specific, right? If it's a string, it's clear. If it's a number, more or less clear. Just quote it. it's a number. If it's a Boolean, is it true? Is the word true? Is the word false? Is a 1? Is a 0? Is a yes? Is a no? Is okay? No. How do you serialize this as a string? If it's an array, how do you do it? There are at least 3 types that I know, 3 ways that I know of to serialize an array as a string. So which one are we going to use?
Yep.
Right. So the other way to do it is we don't give a fuck. It's up to tooling to figure out, and it's up to implementations to. I mean, in the end, I don't think anyone will serialize an array into a parameter. I don't think so. But if that's the case, let's find out. People will complain. We improve it. We add the type keyword. We do these mappings, and that's it. And done. But if not, we keep it simple.
Makes sense.
All right. Yay, let's work for me.
One thing about release notes on GitHub, we agree that there's not gonna be any specific details. Like it's mainly gonna be PR title headers, or do you want it grouped into specific features, or how do we want to create
just
that?
list of changes, right? Like we usually do. List of changes, separate PRs.
Yeah, but for example, let me take one. More reusable objects. This is part of 1, 2, 3, 4 different PRs. Do you want it grouped, or do you want it each individual PR as having one line, for example?
For me, it's okay if it's just gonna be a list, flat list, but
and then a link to.
Yeah, but if you already have headers, you can add headers, like headers grouping. That's what you mean, right?
Yeah, if you have it grouped,
you already have it grouped. You even have headers, so it's just copy paste. But flat is completely fine.
It would actually be nice if each section then links to the proper documentation as well, I guess. All right, makes sense. Let's see. I don't got anything else.
So we're releasing in September, right?
Yeah, next year.
I was actually going to say that. Well, that's why I made the joke before. Like, are we releasing this in June? Because we're not even close to finish this. So
not if you keep adding stuff.
I'm not adding it.
You keep finding stuff. It's like each meeting we have a new stuff that's gonna be added.
No.
Oh yeah.
No, this thing that I said about the server variables has been around for months already. It's just that I didn't finish it.
How different is it?
It's not adding, it was there. We just need to do it. Nobody did it, so I still have to do it. So, but it was in the list, right? Initially at least. So yeah. Another thing that I think we should consider probably is not sticking to the release schedule. We don't have to. Right?
I would probably say the opposite, actually.
Which
that
is
we have to.
that we do like follow that one. And the reason I'm saying is the exact same argument that you had in some of the other meetings. Like, why do you fear having to do another breaking change? Like, you want to group as many things together, and that makes sense, but you have to stop eventually.
Yeah.
So why not now? Why wait?
Yeah, that's a good argument. But what I'm saying is that if we don't release in June because we don't think it's good enough, because it's inconsistent or something, right? Then we have two options here. We don't wait until September. We release in July, if it's ready in July, right? Or in August, if you want. Who cares, right? So if it's done, it's done, right? So we can release it. That doesn't mean that we have to release support for it on all the tools, but we can release the spec already. And the other option is that we wait until September, of course, and we release it in September. What I'm fearing about waiting until September is that the next hop, let's say on the release schedule, is January, so it's already 2024, right? So it's a lot. It's a huge gap, right? I will not wait until next year. So we will be risking that we don't meet the September deadline again, and we don't release them September. So in such a case, I would do like, okay, October, November, whenever it's ready, right? If that happens.
What does ready mean?
Ready means that we have all the issues there completed, right? So
which issues?
The ones that you saw on the list. Right?
But you have more. So what I'm trying to hint at is, can we explicitly define what do we need to achieve in order to release version 3? Let's forget all about deadlines, for example.
Isn't it this list that you had? That's what I'm considering.
That's the main list, yeah, where it's like, that's the progress I'm tracking, but we have further issues, right?
Which ones? Well, yeah, the one that I mentioned is up there, you told me.
Yeah. And it's not like, the reason I'm saying is it's not the first time that happened. I think it's happened twice now, that we had this, okay, then there's this issue that needs to be done. Oh, we want traits as well. Oh, we also want, I think it was the schema format, like trapped into this release. So it's like, can we explicitly define what's the, not actions, but like
the items.
Outcomes that has to be completed in order for us to release? Can we is that even possible? Or is it like, so. Okay, or we feel like when it's ready, it's ready?
Yeah, I mean, we already have these 3 items, right? So it's traits, schema format, and the parameters, and that's it, right? Because the other pull requests that I mentioned
right now,
today,
yes,
they're editorial. So
right now, yes.
Yeah. And
okay, we can list it. We can try to vote on it. Like these are the last 3 things. That's it.
Okay.
Are you concerned that we will just come up with some?
Oh yeah, I'm for sure that in a few months you guys have something else you want to add.
No.
So now I'm trying to trap you into a specific scenario where you cannot get out of it.
And to be honest, I'm not even concerned about the traits one. I don't care if it makes it to the release or not.
Same here.
There's probably different opinions there. So it's like what I'm trying to get at is there's different opinions. There's different ideas about when this should be released. It almost changes from month to month at the moment. So it's like, can we just, because it's also tiring from, I'm guessing from a community standpoint, but also from my perspective, it's like we keep pushing the release of this without having any specific actionable set of stuff that we have to achieve. So it's like, it's almost like an eternal task that just keeps on repeating, and it's like there's no end to it. So what I'm suggesting is that we find that specific stop and then agree upon this. I don't care about release dates. in theory. It's all about once we reach that stage, we release it in that month or in that release period. That's my suggestion.
Yes, Dad. I like it because you're calling us out for being like kids. Like you're not behaving professionally.
No. I'm just calling it how I see it.
But it's also about the time commitment, right? So, and the interest of driving topics. So like in case of schema format, there was many people were interested. That's why we are driving it, because we don't want to break right after T0 this topic, right? In case of parameters, it's part of the same issue. And we have people that want the change. In case of traits, if there's we're delayed basically there, and we didn't even touch tooling. So we just need to clarify if there's a really commitment from the contributors to really push it forward, because June is pretty close, especially the tooling, because it's a change in the traits merging mechanism. And that's it. If there's no commitment, then it goes out of the scope.
Yeah. So the reason I was excluding traits, or let's say that it's not as important as the other ones, is because if you every spec, almost every spec out there will be using parameters, will be using schemas. So if you release a breaking change in these areas of the spec, everyone will have to migrate, right? And that's a pain. And that's a guess. What I'm gonna say is a guess. I don't think many people are using traits. And if they are, I think it will still be fine for them to keep using them as they are, right? So then if you change the behavior of the traits, then you only affect those who are using traits, which I don't have the data again, but I believe it's a minority, or I hope it's a minority. Actually, traits is something that I want to get rid of at some point, but yeah. But I can move it to a different level. But yeah, that's another discussion. So yeah, that's why. So that's why I don't think it's if we release version 4 in January, for instance, because we changed the traits. Well, it's cool. It's still fine because it's another major version because we have to. But the reality is that it will be impacting almost no one, right? So that's not a problem. Or almost no one, no, but not the majority, right? So yeah, that's why I'm not so concerned about traits. And that's it. I would love to have data about it, but yeah, we don't have data yet. So yeah.
I mean, everything is well intended, right? That's the deal, but at some point it also just gets too much.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing why I'm pushing you folks a little.
No, it's okay. You're doing good. So what I will do is I will just write on that issue that you have with all the changes and all of that. List those 3 changes and seek for commitment from all the code owners of the spec to actually say like, yes, these are the last 3 things. Or no, there's someone else that you didn't think about. Okay. Let's define that list, right? And let's come up with an agreement. If it's these 3 things, one, it's almost done by Heiko. The other is pretty simple. The server variables and parameters is pretty simple. I don't think it's going to take a lot of time, but let's see. And from the spec point of view, of course. And the traits is probably the one that's going to take the most here of those 3. I mean, given that Heiko already did most of the schema stuff. So yeah. Then I'm confident if it's these three, then we can release in June. For sure. If I find time to prioritize some stuff.
There's still tooling. Just don't remember. It's not just because I know that in the release process we have like in the contribution guideline we have that it's just parser, I think,
parser
and JSON schema, but like it's 3.0. So
I know
Studio Converter, come on, like that should be there.
Yeah, but that's what I was saying. We can decouple this, and we can for this major version, given that it's a lot of time, it's a lot of work, we can release it silently, right? It's like it's released, it's that we don't make a lot of noise, right? And in the sense that like we don't celebrate it, right? And once we have tools migrated to support a set of specific tools that we define, migrated to support version 3, then we celebrate it, and then we can probably celebrate this in September, right? But the spec is already there, and then it won't be a problem. Same for docs. Probably it's going to take a lot of time to update the docs. That's gonna be a huge work. So yeah, we probably might not be able to use the version 3 on June, right? People might have to wait until September to use it. You hear me well? You're
you're
cutting
network issues.
I'm cutting. Oh, sorry.
I actually I don't think we should silent release it. I think we should just freeze it.
I'll come back. I'll be right back in a second. I'm gonna switch network.
Let's stay in silent.
Shouldn't we anyway change to finish the meeting?
Okay, I'm back.
Welcome back. So as I was saying, I don't think we should silent release it. Like we can as long as everything is ready for release, that's fine, because we have everything out in branches, everything is ready to be released. So as long as we, again, if we just take all of these tooling, list them and say, once all of these tooling have been migrated, then we do the big release and it can be used however you want.
All right, yeah. We freeze the spec thing. It's like no more changes are accepted.
Yeah. Basically everything is ready. Like everything is lined up.
If somebody it's clear, we will just make a clear message that you can't, and there will be no commits into the release branches, that it's freezed. And if you want, and that's the silent release, there's a release candidate. You want, you can just start using it. Like it's easy.
Yeah, exactly.
But the two, and I agree here with Jonas, because I think we always said what's great about Async API initiative that we also do tools. So we give much better experience with the spec, because you know that there's new version and you can actually already use it because a bunch of tools are already migrated. So
that's why I said like the silent release. I mean, we don't have to release it. If we can keep it as a release candidate, that's okay. That's fine. What I'm saying is that we cannot touch it anymore. It's done. It's untouchable. Well, I was saying release because that's one way to make sure that you don't touch it, because it's trying to release, right? But we can just make a clear message there, as you said, like no more pull requests here, right? If you want to do a pull request after that, you can already use the release branch as your source branch for the pull request, and later you rebase, and that's it. But what I'm saying is that I think we're aligned. It's just the execution, the way to executing it. It's just
and to even make it more secure, like to address concerns. Yeah, but also to address concerns from Jonas that we're throwing in things. We can even have an official blog post, like a release candidate release, right? That okay, folks, we say it's freeze. No more things go in. So if you're using Async API tools, we're not yet releasing because we're adjusting tools. But if you're not using async API tools, if you in some corporation you're blocked, you have your own parser, everything you built from scratch because you have money to spend on engineering. If you want to do it this way, then you do it this way, but you're relying on request reply, then take it. Like in this announcement, we will have already links to docs that we're working on. You can already start using it because we're not going to change it.
Yeah, makes sense to me. I'll add it to the get a commitment basically and write exactly these are the stages we go through, or I'm suggesting we should go through, that has specifically defined action points about what we need to achieve in order to do X and in order to release it finally. Especially from tooling side, I'm going to suggest which tooling we need to update or migrate.
Yeah, we don't need to do, yeah, exactly. We don't need to update all the tools. Yeah. But I will say like the most critical ones, right? So parser, of course.
But that's it, yeah.
Generator, Studio, CLI.
React components.
And
I wanted to migrate Node.js template. But it's
yeah, generator,
my own personal commitment because like I'd like to basically check it like in action, really, in the template, in the code generation, of course.
So then you can use Glee for that.
No.
Migrate Glee, and you will see it in action.
No.
No, I prefer to use Hermes and I maintain library by friend.
Yes, that's because that's typical and real async API open source approach. Like you're using a library that is deprecated, has no maintenance, and then you figure out on production that you're fucked.
Exactly.
All right, let's call it, folks. Already it's 20 minutes past. So thank you all for joining and see you next time. Bye-bye.